Welcome back. Well, we've seen the images of protesters in Ferguson burning down businesses and flipping cop cars, but a new opinion piece in Time magazine defends it. It's called In Defense of Rioting, and the article claims this, I'll quote, "Riots are a necessary part of the evolution of society. Unfortunately, we do not live in a universal utopia where people have the basic human rights they deserve simply for existing. Peaceful protesting is a luxury of those already in mainstream culture, those who can be assured that their voices will be heard without violence, those who can afford to wait for the change they want." Here to share her thoughts on this is niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Alveda King. Nice to see you this morning, Doctor. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Clayton, and to everyone who's listening or looking.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at, we heard from the freelance journalist there, Dr. Darlena Kuna is her name. And do you agree or disagree that riots are a necessary part of the evolution of a society?
Well, I believe as I read the article, I believe that rioting is actually an unnecessary evil, even as the alleged comparison to the Tea Party, for example. Of course, tea was dumped into the harbor, but no lives were harmed, no stores were bombed or burned or firebombed. There's a lady in Ferguson, an African-American woman. Her store was firebombed, and I think basically she asked the question, how would this get justice for Michael? Am I supposed to be a sacrificial lamb in this thing? And so during my lifetime and during the times that I marched and went to jail, or my father, A.D. King, or my uncle Martin, we were asking people not to riot, but to use our words and to use peaceful protest. That's not a luxury, because my house was firebombed. Daddy and Mama's house was firebombed. Martin Luther King Jr.'s, my uncle ML's house was firebombed. So we did not consider those luxurious days,
right,
but we asked people to use prayers and words.
So really she's making the argument, if we look at these images on the screen here, the civil rights movement, what she's making the argument, these people you see here in the black and white images, they are from the mainstream. That these aren't people who were marginalized, Dr. King. That these are people who, had the luxuries. They had the ability to go out and peacefully march. That they didn't suffer the same injustices that the people in Ferguson did. Do you disagree? Agree?
Well, I would even say in the 1950s and 60s, there was an imbalance of luxury even in those days, and we were people who were oppressed, firebombed, called names, and all of that, but our response was never violence. There were rioters, of course, and many times, as in the case of Ferguson, I've been there 2 or 3 times now, and as I was there, you could tell that most of the rioters were not even citizens of Ferguson.
Right.
Now, maybe some feel safe in Ferguson, some do not. But those who are not choosing violence, I would not say they're living in luxury, but they're using their prayers, they're using their words, they're using peaceful resolution, and that is really sane and sensible.
She makes the argument in her opinion piece, Dr. King, that after 1992, the riots in Los Angeles, that violence was a necessary evil here because, the police department in Southern California took notice. They changed after the violence that led to the upheaval in the beating of Rodney King. What do you say to that?
In 1963 in Birmingham, Alabama, I was part of the Children's March experience, and what made the difference there was not the rioting, but the thousands of little children who were peacefully marching, peacefully being put in jail, and there was no luxury there when the dogs were biting the children, or the insults that were hurled, or the water hoses that were blowing the little children down the street. I remember my mother and daddy had a discussion, and my dad says, "No, Alveda's going. How can I ask other people to let their children go, and my daughter will not go?" We were trained not to be violent and not to riot.
Well said. Dr. Alveda King, great to see you this morning on this Sunday. We appreciate it.
Thank you.